Red Raider Nation? Welcome to the nation's official podcast. We are your hosts. I am TJ Kern. That is Blake Hartsfield. Blake, victory week, my friend. The Red Raiders found a way to get a victory in convincing fashion against the North Texas Cacas as they came into Lubbock Jones AT&T Stadium last Saturday and left between their head between their legs, or tail between their legs, whatever that saying is. Whatever. Trying to be funny here, but I'm not a funny guy. I'm a football guy. So first, Blake, how did that? I got to give you your flowers because I did get a text after we recorded last week. Said, watch out for this. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a very well played game, and if Tech doesn't blow them out. And I'm actually going to hammer Tech minus 10.5.
Yeah, TJ, I did change my mind after we recorded last week. I think when we recorded, I was still angry and frustrated with how they played against Washington State, and how could you not be? And then, how they opened against Abilene Christian. A lot of people didn't have confidence in them covering me either. I didn't say to bet on North Texas, but I said run the other direction from a Tech cover. And then I think it was Thursday or Friday of last week, I texted you. I said, man, few things. One fact is they're more talented than North Texas. The second fact is they should be pissed off in that locker room, and there's just no way. This wouldn't shock me. I think I said something like 44-13 or something like that, but it ends up being 66-21. They absolutely blow North Texas out. They score 52 points in the first half, and they finally, TJ, looked like the team I think everybody expected coming into the season. It took them 3 weeks to finally play that way, but they finally played like they're capable of playing, and it was a joy to watch on Saturday.
It was definitely a joy to watch, and it starts right at the top. We got to talk about it. Taj Brooks was back, and boy, are we a different team when he's on this football field.
He makes what they're trying to do offensively a lot simpler. I talked a little bit about it last week. Unfortunately, Kitley believes in this numbers game where he wants to create a mismatch either over the middle with a light box and run the football, or create a heavy box and throw screen passes. But TJ, Taj coming back does make things easier. He goes for 17 and 109 and a touchdown. But more than that, they threw the ball down the field this week, which they did not do at all against Washington State. So the offense was significantly better. Obviously, was scoring 52 in the first half and 66 on the night.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if we're going to be hard on this coaching staff when they go up to Pullman and lay an egg, we got to give them
credit.
Flowers when they're due. This team was as bad as they looked a week ago. They were absolutely prepared to play. They looked focused. They weren't making mistakes, and they went out and beat a team you're supposed to beat, and that is on the coaching staff.
One thing I'll give McGuire and Tech football in the Joe McGuire era is following a bad game where they lay an egg and don't play well. Most of the time they come out the following week and play very well. There have been very few, multiple back-to-back losing streaks, obviously starting last year with the Wyoming loss, which was unacceptable. But then, Oregon, they were probably unlucky not to win that game. I thought they played very well, but they responded well. It's very rare that they play two bad football games in a row. They did answer, and they did take care of business.
Yeah, they took care of business like we hoped they would. And before we get too into the box score here, did you know that Eric Morris had like 7 different former Red Raiders on that staff?
It's the Mike Leach tree, right? I mean, he's kind of become the godfather of the spread, and his roots are all over college football. You saw it last week with Washington State. You saw it this week with Eric Morris. You're going to see it multiple times throughout the Big 12 over the course of the season. But yeah, everybody knows everybody. Everybody runs different variations of the original air raid system. And Eric Morris is definitely a disciple of that school because he played for Mike Leach and played receiver here. But TJ, despite the win, they still haven't proven anything to me yet. They're going to have to come out and look, just because you blow out North Texas after playing 2 bad games does not make me believe that you have figured out all of your issues. If they go out and they protect home field against 2 teams that they're going to be favored against in Arizona State and Cincinnati, we get to 2-0 in the Big 12, and we're going to Arizona 4-1. then I'll give them a little bit of credit. But they still got to, keep their heads down. I don't want to hear any chirping from the coaching staff. The press conference this week was subdued, but continue to take care of business. Play another good game this week.
And your boy, Baron Morton, rebounds from a very lackluster performance at Washington State to go 15-19, 273, and 4 touchdowns, Blake. Great game by your guy, BM.
Yeah, I thought he was excellent. There was a couple of throws that made you remember that he's Baron Morton, where he made those, and you're kind of like, okay, that was a special throw. It was really good. He was excellent on Saturday. TJ, I suspected that he would come back and play a good game after playing a bad game up in Washington State. Frankly, his first really bad start as a Red Raider. He bounces back, which is what you love to see from your quarterback. Did not have memories of the mistakes made the week before, was willing to throw the ball down the field and release the ball on time, and made some dime throws. And they're going to look, he's top 5 in the country in passing. He's having a very good start to the year in spite of the Washington State game. And TJ, it wouldn't shock me if at the end of the season, if he's top 5, top 6 in the country in passing, maybe leading the Big 12 in overall, passing yardage. And this offense can be very good. Even with the frustrations that I still have with the offensive coordinator.
I think you're not alone there, but man, I am sitting here trying to take the season in as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Abilene Christian, you put up a 50 burger,
but you didn't play well.
You barely held on, right? Defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, and man, there were a lot of issues on the defensive side of the ball, but you won a game. You go to Washington State, completely boat raced, get killed.
Failed to compete.
You were never in that game. I mean, it was just not a good game, not a good week. Wipe your hands clean of it, keep it moving like we do on this show. Mm-hmm. You beat UNT by halftime on Saturday, and look, let's call it what it was. That game was over at halftime.
It was,
and so now you're 2-1. So now we've seen a very close competitive game that probably shouldn't have been. We've seen a game where you get boat raced, and we've seen you do the boat racing. I have no idea what this team is going to do on Saturday against Arizona State. I have no idea what to make of them. I will say this. I have confidence in this offense to put up points against anybody as long as Taj Brooks is in the lineup.
Yeah, TJ, I think that last point is where you hit the nail on the head. You talked about you kind of gave us a summary of the season there, and I agree with everything that you said. But I think what it boils down to is, what is this team going to be like? I'm still have some questions, and I want them to prove it to me. But what I feel pretty confident in is this offense. I feel confident in the quarterback. The Washington State game is not Baron Morton. What you saw Saturday and what you saw in week 1 is much more what you're going to expect. I think they can score on anyone, TJ. I think they're going to score Saturday against Arizona State, who gave up, I believe, 28 to Texas State last week in a game that they could have very easily lost. But I expect this offense to score. What is encouraging on two fronts, really quick, from the game Saturday, is the defense played much better. They took the football away. They got 3 interceptions. They got off the field. They got third down stops. They seemed much more organized. The communication was better. All the things that we've been talking about and complaining with this defense, frankly, for the first 2 weeks, where they gave up 600 yards passing to a Division II quarterback and then 197 to the kid from Friday Night Lights up at Washington State on the ground. They play much better. And then the second thing, TJ, eight penalties for 55 yards. 8 penalties is still a little on the high side for what I'd like to see, but 8 for 55 is significantly better than what you had done in weeks 1 and 2. So the discipline seemed to get a little bit better. If they can continue to improve on that side of the football on defense and continue to keep these penalties to 5 to 7 a game for 50 to 60 yards, they're going to be a very good team. And I expect that if they play that way on Saturday, they will beat Arizona State.
And look, I mean, Arizona State coming in from the Pac-12, I mean, they're not exactly...
They were the worst team in the Pac-12 last year, TJ. Literally, they were the worst team in the Pac-12.
They're not exactly a juggernaut at this point, right? Like, they should have lost that game to Texas State. That being said, you should have lost to Abilene Christian. So I'm not going to play apples to apples. But that being said, this is another test for your defense here, because I'm expecting the Red Raiders to put up 30-something points, maybe even get into the 40s. And it's about, can you get stops at this point, Blake?
Yeah, it is. Can you get stops? Can this young, talented defense figure out their communication and ability to line up correctly to get stops? Saturday, they did that. They took the football away, like I said. Finally, for the first time all year, the defensive line got a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, and it's amazing the difference that makes because for the first 2 weeks, the quarterbacks are standing back there cooking breakfast and calling their girlfriends and having time to look over all their options and then deliver the football. So yeah, I mean, if the defense can get stops, I have confidence in this offense. Like I said, I think the Washington State game is the exception, not the norm with that group.
And before we move on to actually looking ahead at Arizona State, Blake, we got a glimpse of the future on Saturday because this game was a blowout. Our boy Micah Hudson did get on the field and he did perform. Not only was Micah Hudson on the field, Blake, a quarterback by the name of Will Hammond
Yeah.
got to get out there as a true freshman so far. And I do think I want to get into this with you. And we've kind of talked about it via text. What a cannon.
Yeah, he's got an arm, TJ. There's no doubt. It is as advertised. I'll put him on the back burner for just a half second. I'd like to touch on the Micah Hudson thing first. Yes, it was nice to finally see Micah Hudson out there making a couple of plays. 3 for 43 with one pass from Hammond for about a 35. I think he got tackled at like the 1 or the 2 yard line. It was
Almost
a
scored.
good route. Almost scored. That was really impressive, and that was the quote unquote future. But again, TJ, we've talked about it already, and I want to bring it up. Why can he not get on the field with the starters? We can get this third string tight end involved, right? John Carlos Miller, who's is he the third string tight end behind Conyers and behind Tharp? Um, you know, but we can't get Mike Hudson involved. I just don't understand why he can't get on the field with the ones, why he can't get run with the ones. My feelings on their answer. As for Will Hammond, as advertised, has a cannon, seems to get the ball out quickly. Let's tap the brakes a little bit. I saw some people saying he should be the starter on Twitter. That's ludicrous and just absolutely ridiculous at this point. Let's see him, replicate that a couple of times. But the future certainly looks bright there. It looks like he might have something. And look, TJ, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The ideal situation for this program is you have Baron Morton this year. You have a senior Baron Morton who is projected to be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference coming back next year, and then you get a redshirt sophomore, Will Hammond, as your quarterback in 2026, where he could be the starter for potentially 3 years and would have been in the system for 3 years. So I think the better conversation is coming into next year, is he the backup versus is he the starter?
Okay. Here's what I did on Twitter and had fun with on Saturday. Okay. If Baron, because is it Cameron Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Cameron Brown did not look, he was not impressive. The numbers say it was okay, but it was not impressive. This is what I personally, TJ Kern, feel like here on the Nation's official podcast, to echo your point, the coaching staff would like to have happen this year. You get through with Cameron Brown backing up Morton, and Morton stays healthy.
And you keep the Hammond red shirt. That's the big thing. You keep the red shirt where he appears in less than 4 games. And I think that they would play if Morton were to go down. I think they would lean towards Cameron Brown being the starter and preserving that red shirt versus burning it for. Because if Baron Morton gets hurt, you're probably not accomplishing your goals anyway, right? If we're just being realistic, honest about it.
Depending on when where you're at in the season, I disagree.
No, that's probably
because of what I saw on Saturday, and I was going to get there. So ideally, we want to both of us want a red shirt Will Hammond. We want to wrap him up in bubble wrap. We want a red shirt Will Hammond. Absolutely. In a perfect world, he's redshirted. Okay. If something happens to Baron Morton, and there's a situation where you've won a couple of these games. Let's say Baron Morton beats Arizona State. Baron Morton beats Cincinnati. You are 4-1 and you are 2-0 in conference. Then something happens to Baron Morton. Cameron Brown's not the guy. You got to burn that red shirt, and it's Will Hammond.
I hear you, TJ. I think they would start with Brown, and I think he would get a game first, just to see what you have, and give him a full game to get into the flow of the game. Because um, let's call a spade here, right? If
I
Cameron
think
Brown is your
this. Donovan Smith, hello.
well, I think he's better than Donovan Smith. Um, I think he's a better passer than Donovan Smith. But what I was going to say is let's call a spade a spade. If Cameron Brown's your starting quarterback, they're going to utilize his legs, right? You're not willing to call those when he's the backup getting mop up time because you don't want your backup to get hurt, right? But if he's the starter, I think you're calling. We talk about not calling those design runs with Baron Morton. I think if he's your starting quarterback, just with what he's flashed in the couple of times that he's appeared with his ability to run the football in the zone read off of Taj, I think you do call 10 to 12, quarterback design runs a game, and utilize that weapon. But I'm with you. I think if he had a bad game, then you have to talk about the Will Hammond thing. But we agree. The ideal situation is you have Baron Morton this year, you keep the red shirt. You have Baron Morton next year with maybe Hammond as the backup, and then roll into 2026 in what would be year 5 of the Joey McGuire era, with Will
With the
Hammond as your
redshirt
starting
sophomore.
as redshirt sophomore that could potentially be your guy for 3 years and could potentially set every passing record this school has um, over the course of his career.
Yeah, I mean, it was very exciting. I mean, look, I'm going to say this, and I've said it. I said it on Twitter over the weekend. That's the most zip on a ball I've seen from a Tech quarterback. Baron Morton's good. I'm not talking trash on Baron Morton. That kind of zip hasn't been seen from your Columbies, your Donovan Smiths, your Tyler Shucks, your whatever. That kind of zip, you can't coach.
I mean, the ball. I agree with you, right? He had a cannon. There was zip on the ball. You hit the nail on the head, right? In the last decade, right, there have been 3 names that have generated that kind of a zip on the ball who've taken a snap at quarterback from at Texas Tech, right? It's Patrick Mahomes, it's Baron Morton, it's Will Hammond. You never saw it from Shuck. You never saw it from Donovan Smith. You haven't seen it from Cameron Brown. You hadn't seen it from um, Jet Duffy, or all the laundry list of guys that played quarterback here in the Matt Wells era, and it's been a disaster, right? But when you see the zip, it stands out. And like I said, 3 guys: Mahomes, Morton, and Hammond are the only ones that you've seen it from.
Yeah, welcome the nation's official podcast here. TJ and Blake talking about the Red Raiders' victory over UNT. And Blake, man, it's funny. We kind of talked about it earlier in the show. I have no idea what this team's going to do on Saturday against Arizona State. That being said, let's turn the page and talk a little Arizona State Sun Devils. Right
Sure.
now, 3-0. They average 36 points a game. Their opponents are only averaging 19, and they put up about 420 yards per game against some competition that's hasn't they haven't played tip top competition.
Yeah, I think Tech has certainly played the toughest team of any of the 2 teams' schedules with Washington State, which maybe they're better than we gave them credit for. TJ, we do have to give them their flowers. They did go to Washington, their arch rival, and win over the weekend. So I looked at their schedule after that. TJ, they might finish 9-1, 10-1, 9-2 type of record. I mean, they've got a pretty favorable schedule, so that could end up being a not as bad of a loss as you initially thought. As for this game against Arizona State, they're favored by 3. TJ, Vegas thinks it's going to be a shootout. The over under 60.5. We talked about it. We do think our offense is going to score. We have concerns about this defense, but I think this is a game you should win. I said it before the season, and I'm not going to back down from that. I expect you to win this game at home against the team that finished last place in the Pac-12 last year. Is just now getting welcome to the Big 12. This will be their first conference game. You've seen it around the league with these other teams that have come in and played their first game. They're all struggling. Look at Arizona, who was one of the best Pac-12 teams, went to Kansas State and got just boat race. They got mollywopped, right? They got whipped. And you saw it last year with the teams coming up from the Americans. So I expect you to go win this football game, period.
I'm right there with you. I mean, kind of back to my confidence in Baron Morton with this offense with Taj Brooks behind him. I I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid again, but I'm saying you should put up points, and the defense should get enough stops at home to get you a win.
Yeah, I think they take this game, TJ. I do think they put 40 on Arizona State at home. Um, like I said, Texas State put 28 on them last week. You have a much better offense than Texas State. So I'll say Tech 41-31, 10-point win at home. They cover. Take the over in this game. A really fun thing for Red Raiders, if you're a better, you might want to look at a 6-point tease, and take Tech across the line. So take Tech +3 and the over 54.5. That probably feels pretty good out in Lubbock. But that's what I would do if I were going to bet this game.
There you go. That's my betting guru, Blake Hartsfield, my partner here on the Nation's official podcast with his prediction for Saturday. And Blake, appreciate you hopping on with me this week as always. And how do we always get out of here, man?
Wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em. We'll see you guys Saturday and see if the Red Raiders can get another victory. We'll talk to you next time.